as the screen comes up and gets colored up, you guys can check over your homework answers and ask any questions if you have to. I'm going to be printing up some quiz record sheets. Bless you, whomever sneezed. Okay, any questions on any of these factorings? Okay, let's go to scan 2. A couple of quadratic equations for you to solve there. How are we looking? God bless. We're looking all good? Okay. What was that?
For B,
Uh-huh.
I divided 3 by both sides.
Yeah, you can do that. And it works fine, as long as you remember to get plus or minus 3.
Okay.
Because a lot of people will do that, God bless, and they'll only get positive 3. Would that have been you?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I don't like to do it that way. Okay? And that's why, even though it's a little longer, I do it the way I do it. But if you had done it the other way and remembered plus or minus, you would have gotten full credit. Without the plus or minus, you would not. Okay, here's our favorite perimeter path problem. See how you did on that one? How we looking there, guys? Pretty good? Sydney, I see you smiling. Does that mean that you're smiling because that was a pretty comfortable question for you, or? Yeah, good. Okay. Glad to see we're getting there. A little completing the square. You would not be asked to do one where you come out with a negative answer, just to be clear on that. But just the same. Any questions about the completing the square one? We're good? Okay. Next page, and I botched the graph over here. I'm not exactly sure what I was doing wrong. Somehow I keep coming up with this should be 0.75, and I graphed it as below, and it looks to me like it should be below, and I really didn't have the time to investigate it, so I just skipped it for now, and I'm sure we'll get to countless other ones that are like that, so I'm not too worried about it. Okay. Any issues on what the roots would be like on those questions? Okay, hopefully it's coming all together for you. Starting to make a little more sense. Well, a lot more sense, honestly. Okay. You guys seem to lack energy this morning. Usually you have a whole lot of get up and go. But as my dad would have said, your get up and go got up and went. Because you'd rather be sleeping? Oh, it's a Monday, that's the excuse? Hold it. Hold it. You need to realize that as soon as I talked about how you guys could get some more sleep or a Super Bowl or something, you were peppy. But when we were doing homework checks, you were like, yeah. So, what's that? School's boring. Do you know what my wrestling coach, who was also my bio teacher, my regular bio teacher, not my AP bio teacher, used to say to us? Boredom is an insult to oneself.
Okay. I think you've said that before.
Yes, I'm sure I have. It was a profound saying when he said it to me. So I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. Basically, the point being that maybe the problem's not the material.
Me.
Yes, very much so.
That's true.
So, you know, we gotta be able to find something valuable in it. I'm reading a book on genetics right now, and if you want boring, that'll do it. So,
The problem is not the book, though.
Is that like something that you have to
well,
do?
no, I am forcing my way through it and getting stuff out of
Why
it.
would you do that?
I'm doing it, and this is where I'm finding the good in it, and the interest, because I am very much not bored by it. But if you know, I mean, how many Punnett squares can you draw? How many? How could you talk about autosomal, heterozygous, homozygous, crossing, jumping genes, incomplete dominance of genes? As I mentioned, crossing over, all these other things. The reason I'm doing it is because with breeding Ziva, I want to be able to understand the best way to produce the best pups possible, given the fact that it'll never be perfect, but you want to increase the odds in your favor. So I'm trying very, very hard to learn and to do the best that I possibly can. All right, you're going to notice a subtle shift over the course of the next, over the rest of the year. And the subtle shift that you're going to start to see is a subtle movement which will, over the course of a month or so, become a flat-out hit you in the head with a 2x4 movement that is designed to continually emphasize questions that are more and more like Regents exam questions. Now, it's not that we have been de-emphasizing them, we've done them, and the material that we're covering is the same, but we want to get used to the way the Regents exam asks particular questions. So, here's a good idea, or I should say where we're at with this. Okay, these questions came from a reference that I used the first year before they ever put the Regents exam out. And, you know, they're nice questions. They're not perfect exactly like Regents exam questions. Lena, let's get your legs off of Sydney's chair, turn face forward. Which statement is true about the accompanying graph? It's decreasing when x goes from -1 to 3. Well, if I go from x from -1 to 3, that's this whole grouping right over here. See this? Clearly, it's not decreasing the whole time. Okay? So that's not it. Next, it's increasing when x is greater than 1. Increasing when x is greater than 1. Yeah, that's true. And negative when x is less than 0. That's not true because here's some x is less than 0 and the graph is clearly positive. So it's neither choice 1 or 2, or neither nor 1 nor 2. It's increasing when x is greater than 1. Yeah, we established that. And it's negative when it goes from -1 to 3. Well, look, isn't the graph down here? And isn't that the negative area of the y? So yeah, that's the correct choice, choice 3. And you will find on your Regents exam, they will put at least one question like that, where they basically give you a graph and ask you to draw conclusions based on that graph. Maybe they'll give you 2 of those, but they're gonna be worth anywhere from 2 to 4 points on your Regents exam. All right, any questions? All right, next. Which expression is equivalent to? Now, here's the good thing about a question like this. God bless. The question like this is such that you could distribute back and check and see if the factoring gave you a hard time. But I prefer to do it with a factoring technique. What I notice is the difference of 2 perfect squares. So I square root both sides, and that would give me x squared minus y squared times x squared plus y squared. And again, we should be to the point where that is recognizable. And if you notice, one of the choices, choice 1, is that choice. However, I think that's a little easier than they would give it to you on the Regents exam. On the Regents exam, I think they would go one step further and factor the x squared minus y squared, because that is also the difference of 2 perfect squares. And I think that would be the answer that they would be driving at. I know if they did not give you choices, this is what they would be looking for. In fact, the first year of the test, there was a question very much like this. And I believe, I remember this. I remember Ada Minushkin got a 96 out of 100 on the test. And I believe this was one of the ones he lost a point on. He did the first factoring, which gave him 1 out of 2. But I don't think he did the second factoring. And it was almost an identical question. Yes?
But wouldn't you also have to factor the x squared plus y?
No, there is no sum of 2 perfect squares. Because if I tried to factor that, let's say that I thought it was x plus y, all right? It's not, but let's just say I did. When I distribute it out, I'm going to get 2 xy's in the middle. And that wouldn't match up with it. But when it's the difference, one of them is plus xy, one of them is minus xy, that adds up to no xy's in the middle. And that's why a difference of 2 perfect squares works, and a sum of 2 perfect squares never works. Okay? Any other questions? All right, next, solve for x. All right, so if I'm going to solve this, the first thing I notice is the 2, so I always want to pull out a common factor, and I get 2 times x squared plus 2x minus, that's an 8. Ugly looking 8, but it is an 8. So that's 2 times x plus 4. And if you remember, AJ asked about the way he solved it before. I don't like to divide by the 2. I mentioned to you earlier that I don't like dividing by that 2 because if the question, instead of saying solve, if the question had said factor, and you divide out, and you forget to put the 2 back in the answer, you will get it wrong. So instead, I prefer to do it this way, even though it's slightly longer. Maybe the 2 equals 0, Maybe the x plus 4 is 0. Maybe the x minus 2 is 0. Now I can reject it. And in that way, I still get rid of the 2. Being a little shortcut here, negative 4 and 2 are the correct solutions if I want to graph them, negative 4. All right, any questions? Okay, we already went over the homework answers, so we're set as far as that goes. And we are just going to continue to push through on what's going on. All right, you can graph this now using your calculator. All right, graph it.
But it's not the homework.
Oh, so we're already through all the homework? Wow, today was a nice short lesson. Went through every class question? Okay, hop to it, get going. You get to start your homework in class today. Little odd for me, but I guess it matches kind of your mood and your mode. And I'm also trying very hard not to go fast with this stuff and give you time to digest it. Okay? So get rocking.